Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the second episode of the story in which Naruto is civilian due to unforeseen circumstances. Naruto's life is derailed from his intended career. This story is from Ideas Maker, so please support him. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. It had been months since the painting was in the ninja village's hands. The painting was both a godsend and perhaps consider a curse depending on whom you ask. Even today, they still can't decide which is which. However, in general they are leaning more towards the positive end. Why? Because before the painting surfaced, the Wind Daimyo had cut the ninja village's funding. Since then it's been an uphill battle to get in the Wind Country leader's favor. What pisses the Hokage off is that their daimyo is sending missions to their rival village. It's a huge slap to his face and an insult to their village. Unfortunately, there's very little he can do about it. Turning to their ally, Konoha, for help would only show them how weak Suna is and how incompetent he is. Just when things about to get out of hand, the mysterious painting appeared and changed all that. However, while the painting is a blessing in disguise, it brought equally a number of problems. One of such problem is the fight among the daimyos, as none of them were willing to back down. Sadly, Suna and Raza, Hokage, is in the middle of it. Then again, that's mostly his fault, but at the time, he had no choice but inserting himself into the argument because these powerful and wealthy leaders were about to start a civil war among themselves. Normally, Raza could stand aside and let them kill each other, but since they are all Suna's biggest clients, losing one would drastically lower the village's income. So after some talking and much convincing, the daimyos were surprisingly cooperative. At least that was what it seemed on the surface, but Raza knew these people, thus knew they aren't likely give up this easily. Hence, he was prepared, Suna was prepared. At least they were prepared for one of two teams of ninjas. However, what they didn't expect is for all of them to come on the same night. It was unprecedented and Noon could have anticipated such event. Hence why it wasn't just Suna that's taken off guard, even the 17 teams were equally shocked that there were this many oppositions. Thankfully, the Suna ninjas didn't join in the mess. They choose to be on the watch as they signal for more backup. It was an intelligent thing to do since none of the teams were near their objective. Unfortunately, the obvious invading ninjas all thought they were somehow exposed, thus trying to salvage the mission by taking each other out silently as possible. Apparently, the other teams were doing the same thing, hence how the fighting were in total silence. This was all watched by Suna ninjas as they wait for the signal to apprehend them. As being said, it wasn't just the ninjas below that's confused, even the Suna shinobis watching from hiding places too were wondering what's going on. It was dead middle of the night with poor visibility, hence it's no surprise how they had no idea who their opponents are. Since they are on Suna grounds, therefore it's not unusual to fight Suna ninjas. None of them could afford to cause an international incident, hence they all ended up trying to disable one another. Sadly, the opposition too mistaken it was Suna's intention to disable them for interrogation. So one after another, the teams fought on, never knowing why there are so many ninjas in their path. 17 teams, considering the standard 4-man per squad, that's roughly 68 ninjas fighting among themselves. It's no wonder why the Suna ninjas are confused. By their count, they think there may be more than 5 sides, let alone 17. Thankfully, their commander didn't order the assault now because that would make the situation more chaotic. Those ninjas down there didn't even have time to question one another, it was take down the opposition or get taken down. All they could do is fight because fleeing isn't an option, as the opposition will think you are trying to alert Suna's forces. They were desperate, hence why the fight is so dangerous. It's an vicious fight where they try to knock one another out without causing too much injury, hence every blow is a knockout blow. The Suna ninjas thought they had identified 5 different parties, but then they start to turn on one another. Everyone's busy fighting something that none realized they were fighting. There are multiple sides. As explained, it's in the middle of the night and visibility were poor. Therefore all they can rely on is their hearing. Combined with adrenaline rush, it's a free-for-all brawl that's borderline lethal. The injured tried to leave only to be taken down by another ninja and the fight drag on. Once the scene reached to a manageable, that's when the Suna commander signaled to apprehend them. It wasn't difficult as there's only 3 left standing and they were too exhausted. They knew it's over when they see that many Suna umbus arrive to surround them. They still think someone must have alerted the main force. That night, Suna's prison was overcrowded. Even interrogation was a little out of hand, that's mainly because it's not just the interrogators that's confused. They were stubborn at first, when they do talk they insist the interrogator asking their ninja. According to them, somehow Suna already knew their plan before it even got started. Unfortunately, it's simply too much of a coincidence that the head interrogator couldn't help but think this is some sort secret collaboration plan by multiple village. Based on their headbands as proof, they counted 17 minor villages taking part in the invasion. Do you have any affinity with Hidden Dune Village? What about Hidden Cactus Village? How about Hidden Oasis? Hidden Retreat? The interrogator adding each village name hoping to get a reaction from him. Why are you asking me about all those villages? How many times do I have to tell you I am from Hidden Mirage? Similar responses came from other units but from a different village or affinity group, some are mercenaries. Unfortunately, the chief interrogator had to be through. It's odd that separate teams decides to partake on a mission that happened to be on the same night. When asked what this mission, the ninjas all chose to stop talking. That when the Kazekage arrived, having heard what was gathered through interrogation he already knew what had happened. The whole event was so laughable that he didn't know how to prosecute them. It's not like they had damaged anything because the moment they arrived they fought among themselves before getting captured. Before they can continue, the Kazekage had all of them brought together. That's when things starts to make sense when 17 teams seize one another. You? Apparently, some members seems to recognize one another. Some when during the heat of the fight last night, they remembered the faces of their opponents. It was another chaos waiting to happen until the Suna commander set them straight. Hey! Before you start fighting, you better take a good look at each other's headbands. That got all their attention. You are not Suna? They were almost all asking the same question. You were after the Night Lotus too? Night Lotus, Desert Lotus were the common name they call it now. Since Noon knew its official name, those became the popular ones thus commonly known. At least that's how they will be called until its creator is found. Having heard their slip of tongue, the Kazekage had all the evidence to point out whom the true culprits are. It's another political nightmare for the Kage as he had to organize another sit-down with the bickering lords. They are maybe Suna's biggest clients but they are compromising his village. So over the next days, the daimyos once again gathered in one room. Despite Raza can't order them, but for the sake of the Night Lotus they agreed to attend. It's one delicate situation the village leader had to carefully trek. Watch it Raza, your village is paid through my funding. Don't lecture me on what I can and cannot do. I am aware of that daimyo-sama. However, aside from Sunagakure, I am act ally doing this for everybody's benefit here. You are just saying that because without our money your village would be doomed, added another daimyo. I will not deny that, my lords. I may have said it before and I will say it again. Regardless whom gets the painting in the end, the other wouldn't be happy. So that wouldn't solve anything. Razadono, please get to the point. Other lords couldn't help but unconsciously agree because they want to heard what idea this man has. They are all rich and powerful, but they too can understand there's something that money can't buy and this painting is one. Look, daimyo-samas. With all due respect, why don't you consider finding the painter himself? Ninjas are excellent trackers, I am sure that we can locate him for you. Unfortunately, that's one mistake he will soon regret. However, it nevertheless did the trick as all the daimyos nearly jumped him, each wanted to be the first to get the mission underway. Just one of you is enough, he tries again to calm them down. Razadono, just send more teams. That way we might find him faster. Alright, as you wish. However, before we do that, I want to make sure the last incident never happens again. He's obviously referring to the ninjas in his village incident. Yeah. Anything, just hurry it up, one daimyo just want to hurry it along. Look, gentlemen. The way I see it, in order for this to never happen again is to have all of you to enforce it. This caught their interest because they knew what the Kazekage is doing. He's obviously demanding money, but they knew he won't be asking it directly because he knew they will say no. So the question is, how will he justify it? Interesting. So, what do you propose? Kazekage Dono. They want to see what he will say to convince them otherwise. I suggest you all pit in for the painting's protection. You mean to pay you or your village for its protection? One inquires disappointedly. No, what I mean is for each one of you to contract a security fire for the painting's protection. His proposal stunned them because it's never been done before. Instead of hiring ninjas to steal it, I want you all to find some way to prevent each other from stealing it. I am sure as lords and daimyos, this task should be easy and that you all already have something in mind. The Kazekage was not wrong, just by looking at their calculating expressions he knew they have already an ideal firm in mind. They are all wealthy individuals, hence there's little doubt in them commissioning their own special safe and security. Then again, what Raza propose is for each of them to partake in the painting's defense. Instead of letting them hiring more ninjas to try to steal the painting, he have them add additional security measures so the other can't steal it. It's ingenious. In one sentence he managed to flip the table. Instead of just Suna taking on potential 17 oppositions, the Kazekage made sure all 17 of them are on his side. Even if one daimyo chose to stray, the daimyo or ninjas he hired still have the other 16 to deal against. Just by looking at their calculating expressions, the Kazekage knew they liked the idea. As they thought about what the Kazekage is proposing, they knew it's something never been done before. 17 firms on one security project, that's interesting. They were all clearly thinking of the same thought, they themselves too were interested in the outcome. Aside from preventing their rival from getting the painting, it prevent other future thieves from other nations too. Considering what the painting is worth, they think it's a worthy investment. Raza, before we start drafting this contract, can you tell me what you know of the original painter? Inquires the Wind Daimyo. Certainly, Daimyo-sama. Since Suna got hold of the painting, our experts had been investigating and analyzing it. Preliminary report suggests that the painting isn't that old. 2 years, give or take a few months. That tidbit is enough to convince them what it meant, and that this mysterious painter is most likely still alive. Therefore, potentially more of her work is yet to be discovered. Very well, we will take care of the security issues. Just send out your scouts, we want the painter found. Sadly, little did Raza knew at the time this would be a long search. However, in the meantime he's successful in pacifying the wealthy lords and got them on a compromise. In months, the new museum was complete and Raza couldn't be more proud. It's the most state-of-the-art security system from 17 security firms. The painting is safely secured in an unbreakable glass that's held by titanium casing. It's also built to be airtight and filled with vacuum, which in turn helps to preserve the painting. The titanium casing is also where all the sensors are. Additionally, it also has the function to monitor the painting's condition such as air temperature and position. It was molded into the glass, thus cannot be taken off easily. Combined with seals crafted into the glass, ninjutsu would not work against it. Additional sensors are also in place to both set off alarms and alert the village forces should the painting be touched or moved any way. The allocation of the room is also an important factor because it is in the basement. Hence, even if the museum is somehow destroyed, the painting would still be protected. Most importantly, it will not expose itself to the harsh desert environment. The room was also heavily enforced with protection seals by the village seal masters to limit chakra usage. It's a defensive measure against ninjas, mostly against deadly jutsu usage or bloodlines. Their seals may not be on par against bijus, but they are adequate enough for security. For that reason, Raza had several taijutsu adepts and weapons users guarding the room. So far, both the painting's well-being and security were well considered and the daimyos were impressed. Especially with it secured inside the glass display, the public can experience both its magnificence and glory without potentially damaging the priceless art. If that's not enough, what they had seen is just the beginning, because there are other security measures in place. This is one of the most ambitious security projects to date, hence what's to come is obviously more than just sci-fi measures and painting preservation. One notable feature is the shuffling security system. It's a concept by one of the 17 firms and also used as the core architecture design for the museum. Purposely built like a maze, thus making navigating into the museum a hassle and troublesome for thieves. However, the maze wasn't its selling point, as it's called a shuffling system for a reason. Thanks to the automation technology supplied by the company, with one push of a button the rooms will change and realign itself to form another maze. Think of the first Aliens vs. Predator movie. Funny that it's also a pyramid, but this one will be more public-friendly. In fact, Raza likes it so much that he wants the system activated every midnight. It's great for visitors because the layout will be different every day, thus making the experience refreshing. For that reason, the museum became Suna's #1 popular attraction. Only the Shinobis have mixed feelings because they will have to familiarize themselves every morning just to do their job. They are not only there for security but also to sometimes act as guide for lost visitors. While the maze is perhaps the most renovation system in place, but it doesn't stop the thief or ninja from stealing from the museum. Because the most it can do is to delay and confuse them. However, as being said, that was just one system. Combined with other systems, the museum is literally a huge trap house. Thanks to each of these companies, additional safety measure is taken to ensure they are not lethal or accidentally triggered. Along with the shuffle system in place, the traps too will be repositioned or interchanged. It's an ingenious design and the blueprint is safely stored in the Kazakage's vault. Although the architecture is a work of art, but it's nothing compared to the museum's star attraction, the Night Lotus. Thanks to the extra funding by the daimyos, Raza had Suna's best decorators setting up the stand for the main stage. While the painting itself is already outshine everything anybody had seen, however, combined with right support, it went up in another level that even the daimyos couldn't anticipate. Thanks to the dim light atmosphere surrounding the painting and the ambient light on the lotus, it made it stand out more. It was truly divine and made you want to appreciate nature differently. Despite the desert theme, the silence and stillness of the night through the paint is entrancing. There are even rare plants in place to give people false flowery scent through the painting. It was because of all this that Raza was praised for his effort and restored the daimyo's confidence in the village. These rich individuals aren't interested in ninja affairs. Their support is only true if the ninja villages indirectly benefits them. Like many wealthy individuals, they aren't likely invest their money in something that isn't worthy. With Suna doing poorer and poorer in the daimyo's eyes, they felt their money are better spent elsewhere. Hence, when Suna managed to do what these daimyos hadn't thought of, their view changed. Instead of seeing a simple poor village, they found something worthy in value. While it's not exactly what Raza wants, it had its desired effects. He was hoping the daimyo would see them as a great military asset, but as mentioned, they didn't care about that. What they concern about are economy and growth. After all, money don't grow on trees and Suna is their money pit. However, thanks to the latest event, they don't see them as just a ninja village. On the other hand, if the daimyo are impressed, there's a very high chance that the museum will be a success to the public. True to their expectations, the building is a major success. Within a week, its news attracted numbers of foreign people and other daimyos to Suna. In months, there's no place on the elemental nation not knowing about Suna's big evolution. There are even many people moving into Suna. Collectors, billionaires or simple art lovers. One reason or another they came into the ninja village bring along new opportunities. Thanks to the impressive display in security, some collectors even offer to loan their own private collection to the museum. While the painting is a godsend, it also generates negative attention and disorder within Suna. Some zealous group claim that the painting is cursed just because its natural effect. They believe it's the devil's work and trying to steal people's soul. Thankfully, the painting was well protected so those idiots can't do anything. These people were somehow right because the desert lotus does have the power to tuck people's heartstrings. It's no rumor or exaggeration by the media because the painting sometimes known as night lotus can cause people to feel at ease by looking at it. The painting perfectly captured the moment the legendary lotus was blooming. Combined with the magnificent view of the chilly desert at night, the visitors were amazed because none of them had seen anything like that. Even the locals were compelled to remember what desert nightlife was like. Due to that reason, hotel business in Suna were on the rise as visitors came to see what desert nightlife has to offer. That's something the Hokage couldn't anticipate as his village continues to thrive out of his control. At first it was just to accommodate the visitors, thus new hotels were built. As demand increases, more food stands, restaurants and shops follow. Although, those changes were expected. However, Suna nightlife was new. He should have known, with the night lotus as center of his village's attraction people would be curious. Not just about the legendary flower but the desert night. While it's dangerous in the desert, within the village walls it's safe. Hence, it should come as no surprise people want some activities through the night. Since then, Suna has been transformed. Instead of simple and old quiet nights, there are now lights, activities and entertainment all the way through the night. The village is like a never-ending festival and the Suna council all had mixed feelings. Some says the changes were better because it helps the village thrive, whereas the other complain it's out of control and want to go back to the old ways. With new ways of life means new lines of problems. Security had to be increased as his shinobis work tirelessly through the nights to keep order. Suna even have a small district that only open during night hours. During the day that site is like a ghost town. For Raza, his village is changing too much and too fast for his taste. Sometimes, he wondered if it was for the better or is it for worst. He's still debating today as his council continues to bring up new lines of problems. Again, Raza is asking the same question, are we better, as he tries to tune them out. Gaara, it wasn't just daimyos that was affected by the painting sensation. Even the local Jinchuriki of Suna somehow found himself entranced by it. Being alone all the time and with most of his family members avoiding him, Gaara turns to the latest gossip surrounding this miracle painting. At the time, the desert lotus or the night lotus weren't very well known then. Gaara only heard it because the shinobis guarding it. There are also people gossiping on the streets but never did go to the old museum. With nothing better to do, the sleep-deprived child went to see what made it special to have daimyos fighting over it. Since this is Gaara, Noon dared to stop him but they did inform his father. By then Gaara had already arrived to his destination. Although the room had at least 4 umbus guarding it, none want to act unless they can sense ill intent from the Jinchuriki. It's safe for both them and the painting and they were glad he didn't try anything suspicious. In fact, they were more surprised to find him much calmer than usual. That's when Raza came into the picture as the head umbu greet and report to him. Gaara's stance never changed because he's extra cautious when it comes to his father. After hearing the full report, he was shocked because his son being calm is unheard of. It made him wonder if there's more to it than a simple painting. Having observed his son for an hour and seeing he's not a threat to the priceless painting, Raza decides to leave. He will need to have Elder Chio check that painting again just in case. He didn't want any unknown seals controlling the village's weapon. Better safe than sorry. On the other hand, Gaara was at first just curious. He didn't expect to hang around long until he saw the lonely portrait. Lonely? Why do I think that? He doesn't understand why, but that in turn made him thought about himself. I think I am lonely too. I guess we are the same. Again, he had no idea why. Everything was being processed in his mind, hence Noon can hear his thoughts or he unconsciously express himself. Perhaps he's just talking to himself, or that the painting is just a reminder of his situation. Nevertheless, he found himself actually sympathizing it. Are you doing this? Did you make me feel this way? Obviously, he didn't get a response. However, from the way he sees it, he thought it's the painting trying to communicate with him. Not knowing what to do, Gaara ended up staring at the painting. That's how he's slowly drawn in by it. The loneliness feeling is still there and he still had no idea how and why is getting them. Am I just imagining it? That feeling, I think it's coming from the drawing. Why do I even think it's lonely? It's just a painting. After some time, he's decided on something. Okay, how about I stay here? Again he communicate with his mind. He had no idea why, but he felt it's how he can talk with it. However, if he's expecting some kind of a response, he will be disappointed. Having gotten no answer, Gaara sighs to his fate. Somewhere deep in his mind, he felt it was the right thing to do. Under normal circumstances, he would have left. What stopped him is that connection, as there's still that tug of loneliness lingering in the air. As seconds continues to tick by, followed by the minutes, Gaara starts to pay more attention to the strange painting. Why do I get that feeling? He starts tracing its contours with his eyes, but unknowingly he was surprisingly calm. Normally, voices in his mind would urge him to kill and destroy everything in sight. Somehow, it's surprisingly quiet. Hence, despite the number of unknowns, he didn't hate the experience. So over the next following days, Gaara found himself returning again and again. He also found himself a nice comfortable spot, a seat with a direct view to the painting and all for himself. The reason it's all for himself is because Noon dared to go near him. Over time, Gaara found himself slowly appreciating the painting. It also became quite apparent that his mother is rather quiet when he's there. Finally, some quiet and Noon to disturb him, he found himself true peace he lacked over the years. In this room, there's no discrimination as everyone's attention were on the painting. Despite the small gap between him and others, he didn't feel different like when he's outside. After weeks, some people socialize with him. It may be due to the fact that they are foreigners, they didn't know him by reputation, that they mistakenly talked to him. However, what surprised them is what he had said. Marvelous, isn't it? Gaara didn't even know he was talking to him. I am surprised a young fellow such as you is here. Although he only just realized the man is talking to him, Gaara didn't know what to say. You know, if you look at it just right, you can feel the silence of the desert. It's just so perfect. I think it's lonely. Gaara said absent-mindedly. What? Returns the surprised visitor as he turned back to the painting. After a short while, he starts to say. Oh my, oh my. You are right, young man. There's a sense of loneliness too. How could we've missed that? Like a kid finding something new, he was quite excited by the discovery. Unknown to Gaara, that information would be passed down to the others in the art community. That's some insight you got there. Tell me, are you a ninja by chance? Gaara only nodded silently in response. I like you. Please let me know your name so I will know whom to turn to for future missions. Gaara. Due to that one strange event, Gaara's team received numbers of recommendations and mission requests. It's a Huge surprise for Raza as he couldn't believe the sudden surge of interest with his youngest son. Lord Ramuri, may I ask why the sudden interest in my youngest son? Oh, Gaara is your son? Excellent, we were right to choose him. Not only has he good instincts but also making of a great ninja. Unfortunately, that comment only served to confuse him. Lord Ramuri, I am afraid I do not understand. Can you elaborate? What instinct are we talking about? Why, art instinct of course, leaving Raza dumbfounded in place because he didn't know how to respond to that. What the F*******. Ninja quality are now dependent on art, thought Raza in his mind. Lord Ramuri, forgive me for being blunt. How exactly do you measure a ninja's level with instinct? Ninjas are all about survival, strength, jutsus, and power of their mind. So how does instinct on art fit into all this? Raza is determined to try to understand all this, and this client in front of him seems to be more forthcoming, hence why he's hoping to get an answer from him. Razadono, you are too one-dimensional when it comes to ninjas and shinobis. What you say are perhaps true, but that's only in times of war. However, we aren't at war, hence a different perspective is essential. You may not see it, but young Gaara was able to point out something even experts couldn't. That's talent and not something ordinary people have. While the client may have raised some interesting points, but Raza isn't going to change the way he ran his village because of that. Even the novelty of it sounded stupid. They are ninjas, how looking at art can save them? As his ninjas summons Baki and his team, Raza just realized. It's again that painting. At least the man wasn't trying to send their village weapon into a trap. Then Raza couldn't help but thought back about the conversation. How stupid and naive. Ninja villages are always at war. Perhaps that's the one-dimensional thinking Lord Ramuri was talking about. When the team finally arrive, there is another surprise as the client approach Gaara and mingle with him. This only made the ninja occupants in the room tense. Will he kill him? Should we warn the foolish client? Most importantly of all, can we stop him when that happens? The obvious answer is no, but they chose to watch the event unfold because they still can't believe this is the same Gaara he's talking about. Surprisingly, Gaara is just Gaara. He doesn't talk unless he has something to say. However, to his family's shock, these people were able to communicate with him without rising hostility or bloodshed. Excuse me, how did you know each other? Asks Temari. Oh, you mean Gaara and I? We met in the museum. Gaara was brilliant, he's gifted with superior instinct to spot something none of us could. Not even the experts knew about it until he points it out. That's where everyone realized the missing piece of the puzzle. He was even kind enough to share how the original owner died and how the painting ended up in the museum. The siblings were obviously stunned because that's so unlike their brother. All right. Lord Ramuri. I think it's time to start the mission. Raza knew he had to stop him or he will never stop. Gaara did indeed learn about the original owner. That's right after he learned about the painting. Was it just a coincidence? That time he had asked himself. Even today, he found himself no closer to the truth, as sometimes the painting made him think it's alive whereas other times it's just a painting. It's how he managed to mingle with those around him because they too had been asking themselves the same question. Then again, he did surprise them with his nonchalant comment. Aside from Night Lotus and Desert Lotus, some gave it another more deserving name, Silent Lotus. People from outside Suna generally call it Desert Lotus, whereas those in Suna chose Night Lotus. However, among the art community they prefer Silent Lotus. All names were meaningful and beautiful in their own way that expresses clearly what the painting illustrates. Additionally, Gaara also found out what happened to the previous owner. Coincidence? Was the painting feeling lonely because it's missing its owner? Now that he learned about this new piece of information, he thought there's a tinge of sadness too. Did he just pick this up? Or was it there the very beginning? The painting is becoming more mysterious and Gaara couldn't help but wanted to find out more. As this was happening, he will find out later that teams being sent on missions to find its original creator, artist or painter. That again interests him because he too is eager to meet the person that can produce something like this. Since the painting episode, Gaara took time studying the museum's other exhibits but none have that same effect on him. Hence, it's no surprise why he's curious with its creator. With Suna's Jinchuriki also in the picture, rumor spread that the painting can pacify even demons. There are cultists believe there are hidden messages within this mysterious painting. Most ridiculous of all, they think it was written by the gods. Combined with events that transpire where Elder Chiyo claiming something familiar in it. Raza at the time didn't think it was a big deal, but as Shinobi's talk it later reached to ears of civilians, thus eventually to these die-hard cultists. That lead to some to act because they think such a thing should not be viewed by commoners or atheists. Since they are no match to the village's ninjas, they hire others to do their work. By giving away village intel, the mercenaries were able to plan and nearly got their hands on the painting. However, what they didn't take into account is the Suna Jinchuriki. He was not part of the museum's security, so they neglected him. What they didn't also know is Gaara sometimes sleep in the museum, seeing the demon inside him isn't coming out. They let him be. Despite how young he is, Gaara is still someone even the Kazekage is wary of. Hence, once they disabled the guards, they were wrong to think the rest of the mission would be a walk in the park. The moment they let their guard down, Sand immediately latched upon them before throwing them out. The rest was history as the whole village were alerted and the invaders arrested. It was easy to deduce from the aftermath. Museum guards knocked out, foreign ninjas laying outside a line of broken walls leading to where Gaara and the painting is located. In fact, they were more surprised by the fact that these shinobis are still breathing. By morning, the true culprits were rounded up as they confessed to their crimes. Aside from the insufficient security, Raza was surprised it was his youngest son that contributed in the painting's protection. Had Gaara not been there, the thieves would have made off with it. Sadly, that would result in the ninja village's end, especially right after he got all the daimyos to cough up for security contracts. Pissing off 17 daimyos would literally end his ninja village. Hence, in addition of having Gaara around, he increased the patrols around the museum. The village simply can't afford any more screw-ups. On the other hand, Raza seemed to realize everything that happened up till now is because of that painting. The daimyos, the village and now his son, they are all one way or another tied to it. Most frustrating of all, he had already analysts and seal experts look into it, yet they found nothing out of ordinary. He even thought it could be genjutsu, but again there's none. Overall it's a complete mystery, like it's some kind of natural phenomenon. The kind that his village just happens to be in. Even now, the painting continues to take toll on his shinobis. Teams left on the search mission returned empty-handed. While not all teams came back, but Raza had a feeling they will come back the same way. Having read through the report so far, he knew his shinobis did their job, it's just that the trail went cold. Hosuke returned to Suna a year ago, so there's no track left to track. The ninjas can trace the places he visited to backtrack where he came from, but the ninja world is just too big. It's not like they had some advanced technology or records of his movement. If it's just in Suna and Wind Country, they could still track by going into nearby villages. However, once they enter unfamiliar territory, it became more difficult to predict their movements. For some reason, Hosuke also kept a very low profile, thus making back tracing his step even harder. When they lost him, they continued on to adjacent villages, but after finding nothing, all they can do is return to report their failure. Despite the number of failures, the lords never did gave up on the idea on locating the painter. Razadono, I want commission a mission to search for the lotus. My lord, I think I may already know the answer, but may I ask why? I believe if we somehow finds it, the painter could be close. My lord, forgive me for being explicitly direct, but the lotus is a myth and hadn't been seen for over 500 years. I am sure it's out there somewhere, the painting is proof. Otherwise Noon can portrait it the way it did. Daimyo-sama. The Kazekage had to stay calm to get his point across. I must stressfully point out that the painting may not be accurate. The biggest proof is the structure in the background because it isn't any village we know. Raza doubt the credibility from a drawing, thus points it out without insulting a daimyo. It could be another hidden village or just some undiscovered village. Raza-dun, please take this mission. I am will to offer a B-rank deal for this. Sighing in defeat, he knew how persistent these rich people are. It's also difficult to turn down extra revenue because both his village and ninja could use the extra income. The only downside to such missions are its failure rate. By now, they realized any mission tied to the painting will most likely be a failure. Although, the extra cash is good but it's dragging down morale. Nevertheless, Raza will put up the mission for volunteers before making it an order. He hoped the extra payment would be incentive enough for desperate teams. Suna Aftermath. Despite its zero success so far, those types of mission continued. Apparently, the daimyos were more concerned about giving up than wasting their money. It's what's confusing Raza because he couldn't understand their obsession and why they were so determined. It's just a painting, right? Across the elemental nations, there are numbers of famous artists. So why are these daimyos so fixate on this one? Sadly, it wasn't just the daimyos from Sand Lords across the elemental too were commissioning the same mission with nearby ninja village. This all started by the opening of Suna's new museum. Although a huge success, it not only attracted those within Sand Country but many from foreign nations. With the star attraction alone, number of daimyos responded as they came personally to see this out-of-this-world masterpiece. Like the local daimyos, each tried to steal it for themselves. Thanks to the new state-of-the-art security system in place, the ninjas stood no chance as they were all taken by surprise. Raza ended up repeating his speech as he released these ninjas after getting them to agree to return to their client. Right, ninjas from Waterfall. I will not ask you to give up the name of your client. As a matter of fact, provided you agree not to try again. You will be free to go. This sounded too good to be true, so the lead ninja asked. And what do you want in return? While I can see why you are suspicious, this is not a trick. However, what I do want is for you to pass on this message to your client. Instead of stealing from my village, seek out the painter. That's it, inquires the ninja as it seem. Reasonable. That's it, confirms the Kazekage. If that's all, my shinobi will escort all of you to the gate. I suggest you all leave immediately. The ninjas turns to one another because they were equally confused. While not looking a gift horse in the mouth, they maintain a professional and cautious attitude until they are on safer grounds. True to the Kazekage's words, once they are outside Suna's walls their escorts left. Sensing no trap or ninja ambush, they left to report their mission failure. While not necessary, the ninja decides to fulfill the Kazekage agreement and pass on his message. Now that they think about it, did the Kazekage knew this would happen? At first, the ninjas didn't think this was staged. It may sound even stupid because they are wondering if those words were curses. Perhaps, some kind of virus to infect their daimyo. Since then, their ninjas had been sent on this fruitless merry chase for the non-existing painter. Although most of them did not think superstitiously, but a few do believe it was the Kazakich's revenge. Overall, it's mixed feelings. They still get paid, but the mission is dragging their morale down. One group of ninja returning only to see another leaving. Painter? Painter. One asking inquisitively, whereas the other responded dejectedly. Then both would sigh while wishing the other luck. It's happening on other nations too, so it's not just one village suffering. When ninjas from different villages bump into one another, instead of going into fight mode they exchange mission details. Grass, one is obviously asking the other the village they belong. The other nodded. Lightning, the same question to the other, and the ninja team 2 responded affirmatively. Painter, both teams almost asked at the same time, and from their postures, it was easy to see the same depressing response. Since the painting surfaced in Suna, every daimyo, lord, businessman or wealthy individual were on some kind of trend frenzy. Unlike rare items, painters do not paint just one picture in their life. Thus, it's no surprise how they believe there's more waiting to be discovered. Suna was suspiciously more than happy to supply every village their evidence. They even agree foreign nations to supply experts of their own to verify their evidence. In the end, they knew it's genuine. Sadly, this only made these rich individuals more determined. Perhaps, this was Suna's plan all along, to get every village to help find this painter. Unfortunately, despite that many attempts, there are nothing. None of the ninjas could understand it. Aren't they ninjas? Aren't they specialize in tracking and locating? It's still unbelievable and inconceivable. According to experts, such painting is like a maelstrom. Once discovered, it should be impossible to plug it. Suna's Desert Lotus was a fine example. Hence, what the ninjas couldn't understand is how both the painter and the rest of his work elude the combined efforts of multinational ninjas. Is he living in a cave or some remote mountain or something? Sadly, without the middle ground it's next to impossible to trace or backtrack to the original. Anyway, back to the two teams of ninjas. Want a beer? My treat, and you tell me everything you know. Sure, the second round's on me and you do the same for me. The repetitive mission are getting on every ninja's nerves, yet their clients' insistence the village accept them. Hence, even if they are potential enemies they rather share than withhold information. At least this way, they can cover more grounds and not repeat the same fruitless trail the other team did. It's unprecedented, but they had to be creative and go outside the book. Clearly, other ninjas are feeling the same way and their tired expression said it all. Even Konoha ninjas prefer chasing their demon cat than this mystery painter mission. At least it will be inside the village and their target is existent. Many ninja villages think there's no artist and the painting was Suna's financial plot to get extra funding. Ninjas too had sneak into Suna to track down the painting's origin and asking about the previous owner. Funny, while Konoha ninjas were involved they never wonder why their own daimyo never once request such mission. Of course, at the time none of them thought about the issue let alone suspect anything. Then again, they had enough headaches from other daimyos. If the Fire Lord weren't interested, it's one less such senseless mission to worry about. Orochimaru, as if that was not bad enough, Orochimaru too came to Suna. Thank you, Kazekage, for seeing me. Please let me get to the point and explain why I am here. Yes, Orochimaru, I did like to understand why Konoha's second most wanted missing nin is currently in my village. Knowing the snake Sannin had somehow got into his village without alerting his shinobis troubled him. However, Orochimaru is a Sannin for a reason, hence it didn't surprise the Kazekage how easily he could bypass his village security. While the ex-Konoha ninja is second most wanted, he isn't less dangerous. Number 1 goes to the infamous clan slayer Itachi Uchiha. He's higher than the Sannin is because both of his crime and how dangerous he is. Alright, let's get straight to the business. The Chunin exam will be starting soon and it will be in Konoha. I want our villages to work together for the same common goal. It's an interesting news, Orochimaru having a village, thus why Raza is very curious. And, what common goal is that you are proposing? He wants elaboration because he's also interested in why the snake Sannin is being so confident. Why? Attacking our mutual enemy Konoha. I am aware your daimyo had been outsourcing missions to the Leaf. Surely, you want some payback. I, on the other hand too have a score to settle with the Sandame. We both know by ourselves we could not match the true might of Konoha. However, if we combine our resources and along with the surprise, we should have no problem in toppling the village. Now Raza seems to understand. Had this been before, he would have agreed to the Sanin's idea. However, things had changed in Suna and somehow the Sanin's news is outdated. Orochimaru, while the collaboration plan does have merit and I would certainly go along in the past. However, I think your news source is a little outdated. Although you are right, I do want Konoha pay, but recently our village took a huge turn, so I would risk a war. So in the meantime, I will pretend our meeting didn't occur but wish you a good luck in your endeavor and finding another village in your plan. Orochimaru was surprised because he was sure he could convince the Kazakage with his plan. Like the man said, his news was not up to date, so he had Kabuto find out as he slowly make his way to the gate. On his exit he was stopped and recognized by the guards. Oro. Orochimaru? How did you get into the village? Don't worry lads, I am just leaving. Obviously, the ninja guards were lost in what they should do. Their job were to stop people like him from entering the village. Since he wants to leave, they didn't have a protocol for this. Just when they think they should detain him, the Umbus arrive. Let the Sannin leave, for this one time pretend he's never here. The guards understood the hidden message. What they saw are now classified. It was obvious, Suna don't want the public to know their ally's biggest traitor was involved with their village. Yes, sir, it was both an acknowledgement of the hidden order and what's being said. The guards returns to their duty while at the same time ignoring their visitor. Having stayed and watched the Sannin leave, the Umbus too disperse and reporting to their leader. They were also aware of Kabuto's movements as a men team of Umbus were keeping an eye on him. Seeing he's not doing anything harmful, they were only there to observe. Information are more valuable than trying to preventing doing what he want. By monitoring his activities, they can plan and prepare what's to come. True enough, once the Kazakage learned of their report, he upped the village security. One can never be too careful when it comes to the Sanins, hence extra measures were put in place just in case. Orochimaru is unpredictable, so he could be mad by his rejection or simply just want to take something from the village. The list could go on, hence the Kazakage isn't taking chances. That night, Suna had 4 uninvited guests in the village and their obvious target is the museum. Raza was prepared as he had elites guarding the painting along with his son Gaara. Gaara spends most of his time there anyway, so he doesn't mind. Somehow the two had been civil with one another, Raza treating him like a human being whereas Gaara more reciprocal in taking his orders. However, none of the invaders made it into the main room where the shinobi and the painting is. What's happened? You fools must have set off the traps. No way, we touched nothing. It has to be Jirobo, his fat ass knock into everything wherever he goes. Hush, listen. Too bad none of them had time to argue anymore as an alarm was already set off outside. However, if that's not bad enough, they can hear rumble in the distance and before they knew it the room entrance closed on them. What the F********. sh*****, this is bad. It wasn't just the rumble in the distance, as the room they are in also starts to move and making rumbling sound. Since they were trapped, they had to ride it out. When it's over, the trapped Sakan/Yukon had them rescue him. Get us out now, the mission's a bust. Orochimaru will be furious but Sand mustn't catch any of us. As much as they wished to pass the blames, they knew even they get out of this there will likely be punishments ahead. For once they all agree on one thing, Jirobo didn't need to be told what to do. He's the strongest and biggest of them, so with his bare hands he rip open the steel bars and release Sakan and Yukon. Let's get the Fu*** out. Unfortunately, that's probably easier said than done when they tries to return where they came. Hey, this isn't where we came in, cries Kadamaru. No shit, genius. That loud rumbling must have been the security system.
F asterisk asterisk asterisk.
Shut up, shitstain. Keep running. And don't set off any more fuck asterisk 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 traps. Unfortunately, it was already too late as another trap sprung and caught the redhead in a net. That's it, this FUC asterisk 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 ends now. She's both frustrated and pissed as traps appear one after another and where they least expect them. Tayuya, as prideful as she is of herself, didn't like to be caught off guard. She was also particularly careful, so when one just hit her out of nowhere she was furious. So she immediately went into second stage of the curse seal before ripping the net to shreds. She didn't stop as she continued on to the next room. Clearly, it was the right idea because they knew they didn't have time to hold back. So they too transform and ran after her and bulldoze through anything that came their way. Where the foo asterisk asterisk is that damn exit? I swear, I will find the MO asterisk 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 that built this shit. Then I will rip off his balls. It's no wonder Tayuya's this pissed as every time they set off a trap, not only do they have to break out, the museum layout too is renewed. It's certainly not very funny when you wanted to get out. They thought they were making progress until they found themselves back in the same room they demolished. What the F asterisk asterisk asterisk, this is the same F asterisk 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 room we left. No, I think the room just came to us. Keep going. As frustrating as it is, they didn't have a lot of options. They had tried to destroy the walls but it was reinforced by some unknown material and jutsus had minimum effect. Hence, the only option they have is running randomly through every room in hope they somehow find the exit. One good thing out of this is that the destroyed room no longer trigger the security system, thus by extension the shuffling mechanism would not activate. However, when they come into undamaged rooms they had to be very careful or the museum layout will change again. Just when they starts to think they could never get out, they suddenly found themselves out of the building. Was it the system or just dumb luck? The four had no idea. One thing they know is that they are not going back in there. They were just in time too as they can sense Umbu's very close. Quickly they made their way out of the village before the full lockdown took place. Unfortunately for Sound 4, their crisis wasn't over as Orochimaru's waiting for their report. Based on their empty hands and the Sunegakure's alert, he knew they had failed. Despite that, he was quite amused by their report. Aside from their carelessness, the security system is quite formidable and borderline ingenious. He will think of something as punishment but in the meantime they will have to leave. It's not that he's afraid of Suna, but a matter of being too early to write them off as potential ally. The Kazakage is still pissed off with Konoha, hence if he present him an opportunity they may still side with him. It's one of the main reason he's not escalating it. As to the Kazakage, he knew Orochimaru was somehow involved but he wasn't made. Aside from the property damage that could easily be replaced, the village is relatively untouched. He was also quite pleased by the system's performance, especially against the Sanin's personal ninjas. From the little he gathered through their little meeting, he knew Orochimaru wouldn't just send any nobody into his village. However, what he most concerned about through this ordeal is the affect of the painting because somehow it managed to snatch a Sanin's attention. So far, every lord across the elemental nation is interested in it. Sometimes, he wondered who would be the next victim. His son was a huge surprise and he had a feeling the Biju within him is somehow affected. Now that a Sannin too came into view and he's no longer surprised. While his son is on missions, Raza would sometimes stare at the painting for hours. It wasn't because he's finally learned to appreciate it, he's still trying to figure what it is. For months he's been at it, yet he couldn't find what's so appealing to the daimyos and public. Unfortunately for him, he can stare all he wants, he will never understand it unless he open himself to it. It's like meditation as some people can do it whereas others are too agitated for such practice. Raza is suspicious by nature, hence he would not let himself fall or get himself captivated. Hence, no matter how hard he tries, he could never understand its true value. As being said, there had been experts and professional artists coming into Suna because of the mystery painting. They would study it, copy or replicate it. However, while the art can be passed off as the original, their paintings lacked spirit. When placed side by side, the extra quality is more apparent and many professionals are still struggling to understand why. It was simply an amazing discovery and it only raised the value of the original. Many wondered if this is so new painting technique or a ninja bloodline. So far, there's simply no explanation as experts continues to wonder what made it unique and if it can be replicated. As the painting Desert Lotus is causing a storm in Suna, in the meantime the fire prison, too has its storm in the form of the fire daimyo. Warden Dojima may have an idea why because it's most likely due to excessive expenses on the prison renovation. That was no accident as it was his plan all along to catch the man's attention. The prison is perhaps part of the fire country, but unless there's a reason the Fire Lord's concern would not fall on whom he has in his prison. Hence, if he had to reach out he will have to do it indirectly and for a very good reason. Had he went through normal channels, whatever he sent will be placed under a pile of unread documents. So when Naruto painted Konohagakure, it gave him an opportunity. True enough, the cost of material and innovation caught the Fire Lord's eyes as he immediately figured out something doesn't add up. Unlike Konoha and many other countries, the Fire Lord only employ those he trusts. Hence, when irregularities such as this show up on his bill, it promote him to investigate and zero in on the issue personally. Unfortunately, the daimyo's irk isn't something anyone want to endure. Plan or no plan, Dojima still had to be careful with his words. Unfortunately, the moment the Fire Lord steps into the prison he didn't wait to get into a room before firing off his accusations. Dojima, I approve your renovation request because I trusted you. However, when I see the material and construction fee I start to wonder if my trust is misplaced. Dojima couldn't help but wonder if perhaps his plan went a little too well but the massive spending is tricky to justify. What did you build anyway? A mall? A stadium? Joking aside, at least the Fire Lord's giving him an opportunity to answer. Unfortunately, before he can start he was cut off. Also, don't give me that crap about expansion and prison overcrowding because for the past 4 years you had not taken in many newcomers. Again, true. Since Naruto's arrival the warden hadn't approved many new prisoners. Reason being he doesn't know how they will react against the boy and vice versa. Clearly, the daimyo did his study before coming here, he wants answers and not excuses. It was abundantly clear what he wants to see for himself what his money were went. Unfortunately, that's where Dojima starts to feel uncomfortable because he isn't confident in what he did would be approved by the Fire Daimyo. Despite what he thought was justified at the time, a lot of the changes were due to personal reasons. Sadly, there's very little he could do now as he guide employer towards their destination. That's when the Fire Lord felt the sudden shift in reality. It's like walking into another dimension. At least that's what the Fire Lord first thought when he found himself in a miracle garden. Like those seeing it the first time he too was stunned by the incredible, yet impossible view. Are they still inside or outside? He could no longer distinguish the difference. The park chairs and artificial grass only made that distinction more difficult. He can now see partially where his money were spent. Unless he's building a baseball stadium or a football field, one doesn't need such materials. However, those were overshadowed by what's in front of him. Is that the ninja village, Konohagakure? Yes, it is, my lord. I have no excuses, I will take full responsibility. Never mind about that, tell me, did you use my money to commission this? A little confused by that statement, Dojima immediately corrected him. No, my lord. I used your money to protect this. I am sorry, my lord. I just couldn't let such art get ruined by Mother Nature. Again, I am willing to accept any punishment. I don't care about that, I want to meet the painter. That's where the warden hesitated, leading to the daimyo narrowing his eyes suspiciously at his friend. My lord, I think we should talk in my office. This way, please my lord. Surprised by the sudden shift in hospitality and secrecy, the Fire Lord couldn't help but feel a little curious. So side by side, the two head to Dojima's office. Once there, the Fire Lord was given a file. What's this? Inquires the daimyo as he nevertheless skimmed through it. Patiently, the warden waited until he's finished. That's your painter. What? The Fire Lord had to recheck his file to recalculate his age. You mean, this boy did that? Then he realized, this is a prisoner file. Don't tell me, you have this boy in here. Again he had to recheck the age when he was first admitted. You locked up a 6-year-old boy, obviously he's furious. Equally frustrated, the warden too stressfully point out. Yes, my lord, this boy is sent here by your ninja village. It's signed unanimous by all clans representing the whole village. Seeing where this is going, the daimyo now seemed to understand. However, he still couldn't believe the sandaime he knew would do this. Sighing in exhaustion, he inquires. What happened to the kid now? He's still here. I and everyone did their best we can to give him a normal life. You and everyone? The warden already knew what he's asking, so he told him that happened from the very beginning. Dojima left nothing out, this includes the Konoha group's behavior. That is so up. You tell me, the biggest problem is that Naruto being a Jinchuriki. It's another reason why I am keeping him on a low profile and also not taking any new prisoners. The fire. Daimyo had his suspicion, but it seems Dojima already knew about it and confirmed it for him. However, I doubt Naruto will rot in here for long. His talent will take him to places. Sadly, as warden I am out of options. I know he being a Jinchuriki, he's vulnerable to the ninja world, but personally I have a feeling he can somehow get by. Don't ask me how or why, it's just a feeling. It's weird, the kid just makes you want to just believe. The warden couldn't find the right word to express himself, but in the end he splits it out. That's where the Fire Lord stopped him. Dojima, I think I understand. Having heard what you just told me and what you witnessed, you don't have to justify your actions and neither will I judge you. As Fire Lord, he too had his fair share of shinobi actions and witnessed their unbelievable feats. He too learned about Konoha's village history. The catchphrase, "Will of Fire," popped up from time to time as his father or grandfather tries to explain what they meant. Ninjas were fascinating, and he believed it is their will and determination that drive them, thus giving them the strength needed to perform miracles. Despite yet to meeting this boy wonder, the daimyo can already sense how special this Naruto is. That's where something caught his interest. I suppose that's another one of his so-called talents. Sensing a question there, the warden turned to see what caught his eye. Yeah, that's the kid's gift for me. He's like that and it's kinda embarrassing to accept something from a child. At the same time, once you have seen his work it's difficult to say no. Kirito said he's a prodigy and that's one hell of an understatement. The dead painter? The warden responded by nodding his head. Yeah, he was his mentor. They crossed paths shortly after he adjusted to his life here. After catching his interest, Kirito taught him how to paint. It's quite an amazing story. Having finished their talk, Dojima gave him the tour and check out the prison gallery. Thanks to the renovation, the original prison yard is now the main gallery. Obviously, the Konohagakure is its main attraction and it eclipses everything in the gallery. As the Fire Daimyo spends time on each one, he eventually came to a dilemma as he couldn't decide which is better. It's like comparing food, once properly prepared they all taste just as good. Like many wealthy and powerful people, the Fire Lord too is quite an adept when it comes to art. Dojima can see his unbelievable look as he go through every portrait. The warden himself is lucky because instead of getting overwhelmed, he gets to enjoy each one on separate occasions. Naruto's paintings has that attraction quality. Sometimes, they felt so natural that you will feel guilty trying to separate it. Like the two brother portraits that was painted separately. Somehow you can feel they belong to one another and next to each other. The theme came from an inmate telling him a story about two twice brothers separated at birth. One prestigious whereas the other poor that had to resort to stealing in order to survive. It was a chance meeting between them when one broke into the other's house, thus triggering the startling event. Long story short, there were many chaos involved because the two brothers came from two very extreme backgrounds. Even when they want to get to know one another, their social circle were simply too different. Naruto portrayed them perfectly, where one brother had bright and sociable backgrounds whereas the other in dark and harsh environment. Two very different paintings, yet they somehow belong to one another. It's another reason why they love his paintings, as each can tell a very detailed but different story. Coming back to the touring duo, Warden Dojima knew the feeling well because Naruto's painting has that effect on you. They took breaks as the warden invite the fire daimyo to the prison cafeteria. Dojima? What's this? My lord, this is the cafeteria. It may not be much, but you will find that we cater most of your needs. This was because of Naruto? Right? Yeah, my lord. The kid was malnourished when he first arrived. So we changed the menu plan. Over the years, the kitchen were used to it, thus adapted the new system. The quality may not be your usual standard, but it's healthy and good for the boy. The Fire Lord were expecting some dirty and trashed diner with simple food, but this is interesting. When Dojima told him about the prisoner's behavior, he thought he was exaggerating, but he starts to find himself underestimating them. Prisoners were sent here for a reason, as they are ruthless and criminals for public disorder and murder. Yet as they look into the new courtyard, these people are very different to how he imagined them to be. The fire daimyo didn't miss the Konoha party in the corner and the people watching them. Seeing it for himself only cement everything the warden told him being true. Having heard how these extremists were dealt, the Fire Lord can't say he had any sympathies for them. Changes after a week of unscheduled and extended stay in the prison. The Fire Lord is more or less up to date to their situation. Apparently, Dojima hadn't been idle being a warden. He had also eyes and ears on events outside. It's how he found out about Hosuke's demise. Well? Apparently, Hosuke died of natural cause. Anything on the painting? News claim there's an invaluable painting in his procession. That's true. It was discovered in the event of his death. Any idea how he had acquired it? No, sir. However, there are also many villages and countries interested in its origin. All right then, that will be all. Here is your payment. It was discreet and Dojima got what he needed. As the ninja left, the head guard decides to speak. At least Hosuke didn't betray Naruto-kun and his death was natural. The warden nodded, agreeing to the guards. Assessment. Naruto is like that. Once you talk to him there's very few that wouldn't like him. That's very true, those from Konoha were the only exceptions. Size, the life of a Jinchuriki, that's a heavy burden. Yes, the warden knew about the Kyubi. It was not difficult and all the evidences were there in plain sight. The Kyubi attack, the demon name-calling. Although they are civilians, they were not ignorant to the ninja world. However, what they don't know is whether Naruto truly housed the Biju or not. Since none of them are seal experts, they can't verify it. Nevertheless, it was enough to deduce why the boy was treated poorly. However, unlike the citizens of Konoha, the warden never thought of him being anything but a child. Naruto would have been a natural leader, I had no doubt knowing whom his parents are. You mean? The warden only nodded but not responding. The head guard seemed to understand his silence. Neither of them knew them personally, but there are old photos, magazines and news articles. While lacking in evidence, none of them thought their assumptions were wrong. However, without any evidence it is unwise for them to speculate because they don't want rumors to spread that will end up in the poor boy's ear. The poor child have enough trouble ahead of him as Jinchuriki, they don't want his past piling up on him as well. At least until they have some kind of certainty, it's pointless to bring it up. The Fire Lord too had similar suspicions, but since Dojima hadn't brought it up, he too didn't ask. It's unfortunate because Naruto's heritage is something only Konoha can answer. That still begs the question, why did they reject a child with such a prestigious background? Unknown to the Fire Lord, the ninja village had been so arrogant they didn't think they need a Jinchuriki. Civilians were obvious, but ninjas too didn't want the burden in either. Creating a Jinchuriki is a delicate job. Aside from having a seal expert, many ninjas are at risk too. Especially when a Biju as powerful as the Kyuubi is involved, none of them want a repeat of the hellish nightmare that robbed them their fourth Hokage. Hence, in their minds a Jinchuriki is more trouble than it's worth. Danzo may think otherwise, but even he was blindsided by the civilian council's resourcefulness and their schemes. Then there's the Sandaime, as his quick thinking quickly took the Jinchuriki out of harm's way. Sadly at the time, both Danzo and civilians are equally dangerous. The Sandaime was probably right to have him placed in prison because Naruto is safer there than in Konoha. As later through series of investigations, he found he had very few trustworthy ninjas. Combined with the death of a nobility clan, the village leader already had his hands full. The cleaning up was a nightmare, and the civilian council too took that chance to ensure nothing left to chance. They ensures that the demon's home is destroyed by burning it to the ground. Even if there's an investigation, there will be nothing left to investigate. Thanks to the Uchiha incident and people enact their revenge on the demon, it was easy to nudge them in the right direction. With over 200 witnesses and participants, the Hokage couldn't put them all to jail. So instead they were fined for the damage and cost for rebuilding. With the civilian council fanning the flames, there are over half of the Konoha population against his ruling. Even today the Hokage is still battling against that resentment, as they didn't think they deserved that punishment. Obviously, such news wouldn't get to the Fire Daimyo's ears because it would make the Hokage seem incompetent. As for the Uchiha incident, the exact details were omitted. Unless it's explicitly requested, the full details wouldn't be mentioned. When the ninja village was first established, Konoha was granted sovereignty, thus allowing them operate on a daimyo's land and to make their own laws. Of course, a daimyo can always take back that right, but she will lose prestige among her peers. Therefore, in short of a rebellion or economic reasons, a daimyo wouldn't discard a ninja village. Especially one that's both successful and powerful as Konohagakure. Hence, as much as he wanted to do something about it, he couldn't. As daimyo he must abide by the rules set by his predecessors. As mentioned, the ninja village has its sovereignty, therefore he couldn't touch them unless he wanted to violate their agreement. On the other hand, since Naruto is no longer in their system, he's no longer under their jurisdiction. Thus he will be his responsibility and also his right to correct the wrongs done to him. As for the prison, the Fire Lord decides to close it for good. He had a lengthy discussion with Dojima about that, but in the end they both agreed. That's because it was just an excuse to turn it into a museum to house the art. Over the years, and thanks to the warden's leniency, Naruto had painted countless of paintings. By estimate, there are at least 100 and is still going. Hence, even if he wants to take them with him, they doubt he can take everything, nor will he want to. Even without asking, they can sense it through the art. That's another beauty in his creations. If you in tune with them you can sense deeper emotions from it. Somehow you can feel its connection with the building, thus removing it would feel unnatural. It's a phenomenon none could yet explain. This is especially true after all the effort Warden Dojima did decorating the building. It was the reason why he thought he may had overdid it, thus incur his employer's wrath. When it comes to art, he may not be on the same level as the Fire Lord but nevertheless have certain level of understanding and taste. Hence, instead of continuing his position as warden elsewhere, the daimyo offered him the position of head director and curator for the museum. In order to seal the deal, Naruto will need to be informed thus. Why he's called to his office. However, Dojima thought it's also time to tell him his secret. Before that, the young artist will need morale support from those closest to him. Hence, he will have a chat with Ryo Mason before calling in the blonde. Thankfully, the ex-mobster's stance didn't change. It was clear that he had more common sense than those fools from Konoha, and Dojima is glad because of that. Ryoma is also confident other prisoners sharing the same ideals. So along with his godfather's support, Naruto took his Jinchuriki news rather well. As his godfather would say, he should have faith with those that had supported him from the very beginning and over the years. Ryoma taught him that loyalty and families do not abandon one another, those that do are not family nor worthy of his attention. His advice rang true in our young artist's ears as he remembered the times around his many brothers as they taught him new things. Unfortunately, this in turn only alien him to those from Konoha because none of them treated him like a family. Announcement: once everything's in order, the Fire Daimyo is ready for his announcement. The whole prison is there since this will affect every one of them. However, the first news, while a surprise, it was not unwelcome. Well, for most of them anyway. Naruto Uzumaki. From what I read and understand, your sentence was a mistake. Having personally reviewed your charges, I find that you were wrongfully convicted, hence you will be freed. On top of that, you will also be compensated for the injustice placed on you. So as the Fire Lord, I can compensate you with housing, support as well as citizenship in my capital. Just so you know, this isn't a fixed deal. Should you choose to settle outside my capital, you will still be compensated. The surprising announcement is a godsend for our young hero as everyone cheer and came to congratulate him. Only a small group in the corner shown contempt and disbelief, and everyone knew whom they are. This of course was not lost in the daimyo's eyes. However, he's pleased that many others cared for the boy. Settle down, the Fire Lord isn't finished. Apparently, that wasn't the only announcement. Seeing that he once again has everyone's attention, the Fire Lord continued. Naruto's situation aside, this next news will concern all of you. I have discussed this with Doja Mason and we will be closing the prison. For this reason, some of you will be transferred. Having read and review your behaviors, some of you will be granted early parole. It is seldom, but you have all earned it when you watch over and defend an innocent child. It's clear to the crowd whom the Fire Daimyo is referring to as hope rise within them. Only the Konoha group knew what this meant for them as they grew sick in the stomach at how the world and these idiots continuing to protect the demon. Hence, it came as no surprise when one couldn't contain his rage thus spoke loudly. Why? Why do the demon and the demon lovers get to be free while we must suffer? With one speaking among them, the other grew braver as they too nod their heads in support. Just for that comment and attitude, I see that your punishment is clearly justified. The prison is a place for you to reflect on your sins. However, not only did you not see your own wrongdoing, you chose to be ignorant. He was again cut off, as the more vocal one continued to speak out of turn. No, he said adamantly. He's a demon, he will kill us all. A short pause later, as if to think, the speaker continued like he had just connected the dots. I know, he must have brainwashed you too. It was clear he's trying to rally those around him to see reason, to make them see that the demon is manipulating the Fire Lord. By labeling everyone a demon or a demon lover, they feel they have a righteous clause, thus in turn have delusional powers to justify themselves. Alone they are all cowards, but once they rally enough supporters, some in the group will act. Unfortunately for them, they were the only ones as the fire daimyo stared impassively with his pitiful eyes. In other prisoners' eyes, it's only disgust. Eventually, the fire daimyo responded. "No, I don't think so," he spoke calmly. "Truthfully, if anyone are corrupted it should be you people. It was Konoha that was attacked, and only you were the ones exposed to the creature's manipulation. No, we are the ones never stop fighting it. Never to give in to its influence." "Oh, you are saying that the ninjas, the clans and the Hokage all failed whereas you civilians were the only ones not corrupted?" "No matter, I hear it, I find that very hard to believe." The group had no response to that logic, but none of them were willing to admit they are wrong. "You are just trying to trick us. We know we are right." Despite what he said, from the tone in his voice it's clear he's shaken by it. That's where the daimyo turned the table around. "From my point of view, it is you people that the demon caught in a delusion." This exclamation shocked these hardcore demon haters. "Let me tell you this, I had yet to speak with this so-called demon. How do you propose it brainwashing me?" Considering the demon had only attacked Konoha, it would only make sense only those from the leaf are affected. Yet you claim it had somehow controlled your Hokage? Let me ask why it had only controlled your leader and not you? No matter how you want to explain it, I fail to see how you are in any way stronger than your Hokage. Let's just say that's true, then how do you explain about the behavior of people outside of Konoha? The Konoha group had no answer because none of them can explain it. No, the demon is just pretending to be a child. It used its demon magic to brainwash everyone around him. If that is true, why hadn't it tried to influence you or kill you? That's because we are fighting it, we stay pure from its influence so we wouldn't succumb to its tricks. These people were hellbent in believing their delusion, they twist reality to suit their need. What makes you so sure that you are the ones not already succumbed to its tricks? Wah. Obviously, that line of questioning took them by surprise. What if the demon had already got to you first? And what you had been doing is in fact what the demon wanted you to do all along? This would explain why people stronger than you have different views and people outside of Konoha have different views. NNNNNNNO, the civilian cried as he tries to steel himself. We are pure because we are the only ones fighting the demon. If that's true, if we release the demon, are you still brave enough and willing to fight it? That had stopped them, despite the daimyo having no means to release it. None of the civilians have the courage to claim they will fight. Seeing this, the Fire Lord retorted. Seems to me, you are just making excuses. Let me tell you a fact that there are 9 such beasts in the world and they are called bijus. Your so-called demon is just a chakra manifestation taking on an animal form. Through ninja history, these beings were known to be powerhouses. Hence, by sealing them into humans, they can be trained to defend a ninja village. I do not know who told you killing the host would kill the demon. Quite the contrary, since they are just a chakra constructs. Killing the host would release the biju. In fact, over the long history of ninjas there had been reports in these beasts reforming and not its demise. You think you were fighting a demon? No, you are just fighting your own shadows and you choose an innocent child as target. The Kyuubi attack had already corrupted you, to a point you can't distinguish the difference between a child and a demon. By now the Fire Daimyo is no longer addressing one individual, he's speaking to the Konoha group as a whole. If this child is the demon, why hadn't it kill you? You claim it's biding its time, what if it is indeed truly just a child? The group couldn't respond because they had believed it to be a demon for so long. It's impossible to imagine it being anything else. Seeing this, the Fire Lord could only shake his head. Take them away, the Fire Lord said to the guards. You will all continue your sentence in the ninja prison, I hope you can see past your wrongs and redeem yourselves. Once the Konoha group have left and are out of earshot, the Fire Lord continued. As for the rest of you, Warden Dojima told me all these years how you stood by Naruto even when it doesn't concerns you. This tells me you all have at least some kind of moral. Hence, for this reason and special occasion, I shall pardon all of you. Before they can cheer, the fire daimyo continued. Let me say this now, the reason for your early release is a direct intervention on my behalf. Therefore, I do not want you to embarrass me by getting your ass back in my prison again. Having said that, the man grinned at them, letting them know it's somewhat a joke. Then again, it's probably not a joke, but either way none will be stupid enough to find out. Nevertheless, this is a cause for celebration as they all cheer by the news. While unexpected, but they all knew whom is solely responsible for their freedom. It was ironic, the Konoha group blaming the blonde whereas the rest of the inmates thinks he's a blessing. Since he came into their lives, Naruto had always been the center of the storm. Even their personality change was because of him. Some may not want to admit it, but their little brother brought out the goodness in them that none thought they were capable. Years living with him show them deep down they can be honorable and caring. However, despite their freedom, some of the prisoners couldn't help but frown as they went to talk to Dojima. Dojima-san, we like it here. Do we all have to leave? No, Tokata-san, you don't have to leave. The Fire Lord plans to convert this place into a museum, says the warden. You know what, why don't you stick around? I think we could use a few hands. There are so much art here that the Fire Lord didn't know what to do. Having seen them personally, he felt it's more appropriate to leave them as they are. The paintings tell a story and it's here where it was told. Hence, moving them felt unnatural and some of them, inmates, felt the same way. As the fire daimyo continues to watch over them and seeing how merry they are, he understands something. I think I see what you mean. The kid really does have an impact on them. Yeah, my lord. They are all good people. Dojima responded. Some may be a little rough around the edges, but because of Naruto my guards learned to get along well with them. Again, Naruto? You starts to sound like those people from Konoha, only opposite. Dojima was a little taken aback but responded nevertheless. My lord, you have no idea. When I say the kid is special, I don't just mean in his painting skills. The more you get to know him, you will understand. I think I understand already, his painting spoke well of his character. That last line surprises him as he returned the look and wonder what the daimyo meant. Dojima, I see that you are still quite a novice when it comes to art. If you look deep enough, you will understand what I mean. There are sayings that a painting contain not only the artist's feelings but also his soul. It's just a myth, right? Wonders Dojima. Even today, he still don't know what to believe as the young artist's work blew his mind. Unfortunately, it's also because of him that the art society is pulled into another level none had ever seen. Meanwhile, our little blonde artist too is conflicted. What's the matter, my boy? Godfather, cries the surprised boy, but eventually he responded. I don't know what I should do, I have been in here for so long. Ryoma immediately understood his dilemma as his godson's family are all here. To sudden leave is like leaving everyone behind. It wasn't just that as for the past 5 years the prison had been his home. However, this could also be an opportunity because like birds, they will all have to leave the nest. Naruto, take the daimyo's offer, says Ryoma seriously, and Naruto look back in surprise. I can see that he had nothing but good intentions in mind. So you know you can trust him, he added while explaining it with a little more detail. It's a generous offer and an incredible opportunity. For someone like you as an aspiring artist, the fire capital would be like a gold mine because it's full of people like Dojima. Naruto chuckled a little, recalling how Dojima acted when he first saw his paintings. With the Fire Lord as your sponsor, he will ensure that you are properly taken care for. If that's not enough to convince you, the royal court also have many talents that can help and support your line of work. However, most importantly is his Jinchuriki status. Aside from a ninja village, the capital would be the next best place for him with protection. The two had already understood that, hence why they had to part ways. It's too bad I am not much a fan of your work, but I can tell you they are still incredible. You just think they are smear of colors. Ha 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 ha. Ryoma laughed wholeheartedly. What his godson said was true in a way, as Ryoma fails to see the value in them. Anyway, don't worry about it. I am sure we will visit. Ryoma is right, they are all free men so they can go where they want. You promise? Yeah, kiddo. Having said that, Ryoma too left to pack his things. Ryoma's gift. As Ryoma starts to pack his things, Naruto once again appear in his cell. Since he will be going along with the fire daimyo to the fire capital, he didn't have to immediately pack. When Ryoma finally acknowledges him, he hand him a scroll. What is this, Naruto? It's my gift for you, godfather. I know you aren't that interested in my paintings, so I made you something else. Thanking him, he proceeds to open it with curiosity. Despite the number of times he masks his lack of interest, his godson can somehow see through him. Ryoma wished the kid is a little dumber in this aspect because it's his third attempt to try to make him something. He rather the boy invest his time on something for himself. Unfortunately, Naruto's stubborn to a fault as he try hard to please others. This in turn made those around him very hard to dislike him. Sadly, no matter what he paint, Ryoma seemed to have a lack of appreciation in his art. Then again, Naruto wouldn't come to him unless he's absolutely sure he had something to surprise him. Hence, how he only had 2 paintings and now a third. Naruto, how about you take back those 2 paintings? You and I both know that I am not much of an art person. Why don't you give them to someone that can appreciate them? No way, godfather. They were made for you and noone else. You can always give them away if you want. Warden Dojima and Kirito Sensei told me they should fetch some value if you sell them. No way I'll sell them, my boy. I said I couldn't appreciate them, not to get rid of them. Like I said, I may not know much about them, but they are still easy on the eye. Ryoma is more of a traditionalist, hence it's likely that he thinks they are a little too loud, not literally, and colorful to his taste. Since they are gifts from his godchild, he will treasure them. Having said that, he continue opening his gift. He knew Naruto knew about his lack of understanding in his paintings, hence he wonder what he got him this time. One thing he knew about his godson is he never gives up. Even after countless times telling him it's not necessary, he wouldn't hear the end of it. In the past, he went as far as asking him personal questions such as what he likes and favorite places, etc. Unfortunately, even when he masked his lack of interest, his godson knew. He didn't know how he do it, but somehow he knew. It's another reason why he thinks he's special and shouldn't be held back by prison. So when the Fire Lord himself came and announced their freedom, he was more overjoyed for his godson than himself. Although he had his suspicion it's Dojima's doing, however he thinks it's somehow the kid's mysterious power in play. Sometimes he wondered if he's empathetic and used that ability to somehow paint it into his paintings. Unfortunately, like music, not everyone's into rock and roll. Perhaps Ryoma is more old-fashioned, and instead of modern art he prefers simpler things. Hence, why Naruto made him a black and white version. On it, he simply wrote strength in unity in kanji. It was simple, yet beautifully and elegantly written. As to why it is special, it is a little difficult to express it in pure English because the text itself was not known for beautification. Although there are ways to formulate a text such as styling and formatting. In Old English, sometimes the first letter is enlarged and colored. However, they are all only used for presentation purpose. Perhaps this is where culture differentiates its difference. In kanjis, the way it's written is symbolic, thus sometimes you can draw strength from it. In a sense, it's similar to motivational speeches, quotes and proverbs. Kanjis are like drawings or the evolution form of pictures. A more technical term is logogram, logographic writing system. In a sense, calligraphy is the basics to fuinjutsu. Therefore what Naruto had unknowingly created is the very unisent form of seals, perhaps its earliest form before ninjutsu came into being. This in turn explains the odd phenomenons in his paintings. While they couldn't control or physically harm anyone, its effects were captivating. However, instead of influencing anyone, it works in the opposite manner where something is imprinted in it. Perhaps this was the origins in where paintings have souls came from. In Ryoma's case, the calligraphy may not mean much to others, but to the ex-mobster there's a connection. Especially when it's made by his godson, that feeling is empowered. On the other hand, since it's made by an Uzumaki, there's no doubt it's more than a simple calligraphy. He will probably find out later. It may be just a few kanjis containing a few words, but to the ex-crime lord they are personal because these words are his motto. They represent both his past and what he is today. Hence, compared to his godson's other works, this had more of an impact than anything else. Or that perhaps he is more of a traditionalist, hence the reason why he couldn't understand his loud and colorful arts. The kanjis are simple yet meaningful, hence why he liked it. The way it's written is also something to be admired. Kanjis are art, especially when it's written with a brush. Some may think it's simple, but calligraphy's brushwork are like a surgeon's scalpel. You will need to know when to apply pressure and when to let go without any form of support or guidance. Hence, for artistic reasons, a good instinct and lots of experience would be essential, plus precision control. Thus, there will no doubt be many tests and trials to get the proportions just right. A shaky hand would only result in horrible and disastrous outcome. In calligraphy, even a single stroke wouldn't be easy, as the proportion and size of the stroke will be dependent on the amount of pressure from the brush. Hence, on a single and more complex kanji, its balance are very important. Especially when it comes to multiple kanjis, the calligrapher had to estimate all the spaces and dimension of kanjis. Therefore it would come as no surprise to see even experts and professions drafting a few tries before attempting on the real deal. On Naruto's work, not only had he portrayed them beautifully, the kanjis were perfectly spaced and aligned. Ryoma couldn't help but admire the way he had written them. The interlocking of the kanji for unity were meaningfully illustrated, thus portrait it perfectly for its significance. The ex-mobster could look at it all day and never get bored. Naruto. I didn't know you know calligraphy. Calligraphy? What's that? Ryoma sighed, he should had known. The whole scenario reminded him what the boy was like when he first came into the prison. He didn't even know what a painting was until Kirito showed him. Hence, it's no surprise he didn't know what calligraphy is. However, that still begs the question how he learned about doing what he did, because it isn't something one can just pick up a brush and do. Kirito said he's a genius, but Ryoma is still skeptical. Not that he didn't believe him, but he rather see it for himself than take it from another. Never mind that, why did you make this? I thought you would paint me another one of your pictures. Oh, don't you like it? I like it very much. I am just curious why you are doing something completely different this time. Well, I know you aren't that into paintings. So I look for an alternative. Then I remembered seeing in all Yakuza movies, the boss always have some cool kanjis as portraits, so I thought you might be the same. Having heard that, Ryoma couldn't help but sweat drop. He can't say if all Yakuza bosses have that kind of stereotype, but he had to admit he himself is that old-fashioned. I made it with your words, I thought you might like them. It was true, Ryoma often paraphrased the word unity in his stories. This gave him the inspiration for his gift, thus the kanji's unity is strength. However, this doesn't seem to explain how he learned calligraphy. The dead artist did say his godson being a genius. Ryoma wondered if this was what he meant. He didn't know how he do it, but despite its simplicity it's beautifully constructed. Not to forget those were also the very words that are personal to him. Perhaps this was what the ex-crime lord wanted all along, simplicity. He probably think his godson's other works being too loud and colorful to his taste. Ryoma is more of a traditionalist, perhaps that explains his preference. Thanks, Naruto. I promise to treasure it and frame it in my living room. It will remind me of you every day. They were true words from the bottom of his heart, and his godson easily picked up on that. It shows as he smiled brightly in return. Ryoma could only stare back dumbly at his godson. The kid has to be empathetic, because he can tell he truly liked this gift. He had long suspected it, but only today he knew it's true after seeing his satisfied look. Naruto is precious like that, as he puts everything into achieving what he set out to do. He would have made a great ninja with that attitude, or even a Hokage as he used to claim he would be. It's clear to him the boy isn't just any no-name orphan. This made him wonder whom his parents were. Hence, sometimes he wondered if it's his destiny to become an artist. Having exchanged pleasantries, Naruto sped off to other inmates. Ryoma again shakes his head. There are hundreds of prisoners, hence there's no way he could see all of them. The boy had been everybody's sunshine, so it only made sense he wants to thank them one last time. Regardless whether he can see them or not, the others will at least want to say goodbye to him before they leave. Aside seeing him as their little brother, everyone one way or another got something from him. Like Hosuke, he offered them his paintings to remember him by. He had made countless paintings, and some like Hosuke were created through their stories, thus can easily be recognized. There are also many he created upon special requests. Seeing how enthusiastic he was, his brother inmates went along. To them, their little kid brother had endless energy as he worked tirelessly on their ideal portrait. However, to everyone's surprise, he always exceeds their expectations. They had seen how hard he had worked, and their little brother seemed to thrive in seeing their surprise, shock, and eventual joyful expression through his art. All that effort just for this one moment. Sometimes they thought the kid would do something for himself instead. He's stubborn and claims by making them happy makes him happy. It was for this reason they all call him their precious little brother, and he always will be regardless what he can do. Big day. True enough, when the big day came, Noon want to leave without saying a few words to their little brother. Naruto's already there for obvious reasons. They were all his family, so naturally he wants to say his goodbye. On the other hand, through the warden's office, the Fire Lord is witnessing something incredible. To the daimyo, this is déjà vu, because the other times he witnessed something this spectacular is the Hokage coronation. What he sees before him may pale in comparison through capacity, but those surrounding Naruto are, as Dojima would say, family. Through their interactions, it's clear everyone meant well as they gave him encouraging words, hugs, little rubs to his head, and well wishes. It's simply incredible that one kid can inspire at many people and have that much effect on everyone. Dojima's right, the kid is indeed special. This reminds the Fire Lord. Konoha, just what happened to the village? He had in the past visited the ninja village a few times. Sadly at the time he couldn't see what was wrong, but it was clear that the overall atmosphere's changed. It's no longer lively, joyous, and carefree. He had mistaken thought it was somehow connected to the Uchiha massacre. However, now he understand why. The villagers may not see it, but it was their actions that's waiting in on them. They may not consciously understand it, but it's so deep in their hearts that they cannot forget it. Even if it's barely noticeable, he can sense the village is no longer as lively as it's used to be. People can get on with their lives, but that conscience will never leave. They can be ignorant, but somewhere deep in their minds they knew what they had done. From a third person's point of view, the changes were as clear as day and night. Now that the daimyo can see the internal struggle between the Hokage and the people within. You don't need to be a genius to sense there's some kind of conspiracy that got the blonde here. As being said, Konoha is perhaps off his hands, but this could be a blessing in disguise because he's now his responsibility. Somehow he wondered if this was destiny, because from what he can see the boy is destined for greater things. So for hours, the daimyo watched with fascination as the inmates interact with the blonde. Despite what Dojima had told him, but to actually see it is another story. Through those interactions, it was clear they weren't just taking pity on him. Even from a distance, the daimyo can sense the strengths in their bonds. What is more impressive is that the bond didn't end with just the inmates. By reading the guard stances, the fire daimyo can see how they too have some kind of friendship with the boy. With Naruto between them, there's no need for boundaries between guards and inmates. The guards still do their jobs, but as Dojima says, they are one family. It wasn't just the fire daimyo, as Dojima too is watching them. While his feelings aren't as strong as the others, but he too have some lingering feeling for their departure. The boy may not know it, but he does have a strange ability to bring out the best in people. Hence, even he has a soft spot and see them as distant family. Anyway, it wasn't their departure that's had him concerned, it was what they have with them. He knew none of them would betray Naruto, but out there in the elemental nation, Noon can predict what can happen. Especially when the whole nation is searching and turning over every rock for the painter. He knew this would be inevitable because Naruto's work was never intended for closed doors. He had seen how hard he had worked for each of these paintings, and gifted to those he considered as family. They were truly a work of art, and the feelings were reciprocated. He said it was his thanks for watching over him, but everyone thought otherwise, as they believe it was he that brought the change in them. His painting is also a reminder whom they once were, as it brought out what's buried deep in their hearts. As being said, Naruto have the uncanny ability to see deep into people's hearts. When it comes to painting, Naruto never just pick up a brush and paint. Especially when it comes to his brothers, as he would quiz them further until he have the perfect image in his mind. However, it hadn't end there. When he said he wanted to repay them for their kindness, he meant what he said. This fact can be evidently seen in his work, as they all include small pieces of their interaction. Over the years, aside from learning how to paint, our hero learned about every one of his brothers by talking to them. Hence, when it comes to painting their portrait, he would include what he learned about them. Most may have forgotten what they had told him, but the details were incredibly accurate. It was for this reason when they see it, they couldn't help but bringing a flood of tears and hugging their little brother. The painting is not only a window to their dreams, as it contains also a small history of their interaction, no different to a diary. Hence, when they finally discover those little details, it brought along a flood of tears, because they didn't know their little brother remember their little talk. It was incredible he managed to include them into the portrait. An example would be one of the inmates' nightly sky portrait, as Naruto somehow include his departed dog when he was still a child. What's more touching is the young artist painted into the night sky and among the stars. It was faint, but it is clearly there when you knew where to look. However, for the life of him he had no idea how his little brother got the details exactly right. He may had told him it's a farm dog, rough collie, but how did he get the rest of the details? Since then, one after another, the other inmates too found there's more to the painting than what they asked. The painting by itself is already a work of art, but to know that their little brother have more surprises was quite a shock. Considering his pranks, they should have known, and there's probably more secrets waiting for them to discover. Trying to get him to divulge the secret would be pointless, as he's stubborn to a fault. If that's not bad enough, he even talk in riddles, telling them one of the secret is to look without looking. Despite all that, everyone still loved their little brother for whom he is. Aside from his pranks, the little guy did work hard on their paintings. They had see him spent hours looking into different resources just to understand what they want in their picture. He claims he wants to get it not just right but perfect. Even a simple bridge painting, the young artist would research other types before considering the perfect angle. Hence, when the work is finished, it's always far exceeding their expectations. It was for this reason Noon would sell any of his painting. Most of them may not understand about paintings, but they all agree what their little brother gave them is something that cannot be determined by price. Unfortunately, 6 months later the same inmate with the nightly sky discovered the portrait isn't really nightly sky. It was an accidental discovery when he knocked it off the wall and causing the picture to flip to an upside-down view. He was about to pick it up only to stare at it for a few seconds longer. What the foo asterisk asterisk. That's when he realized that the night sky is now looked a lake. The landscape was inverted, sky became lake whereas the hill became a lakeside. That foo asterisk 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 brat. Obviously that episode was well received as everyone had a good laugh as it took him 6 months to realize that. Of course not everyone's portrait had that same secret mechanic. Some later also discovered by viewing it at an angle, there's also another hidden image. Since the painting was painted by the prison's prankster king, there's no telling what else he added. Unknown to the inmates and Naruto, another two fell to the same inversion trick and that is Dojima. Despite hearing the odd discovery, he didn't immediately check his own painting. He wouldn't prank me, would he? One day, his curiosity got better of him thus decides to turn his portrait upside down. Youngsters today. Naturally, Naruto did do that to him and Dojima hadn't noticed for over 3 long years. Only he would use such magnificent skill for a prank. He could only sigh but kept the finding to himself. A prank is only successful when the prankster knew the trick worked. So if Dojima don't tell anyone, then Noon would know thus meaning he was never tricked. Noon needs to know anyway. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off.